I could spend all day long just quickly replying to Slacks all day or replying to emails, and you get that dopamine hit as if you achieve something. But did I really achieve anything that's material that's really going to advance my team or the company? Unlikely.
This is Aon at the Top, where we explore the journeys of today's most influential C-suite and board leaders. I'm Nicole Ward, Senior Vice President at Aon. And each episode, we go inside the pivotal decisions, defining moments, and leadership lessons that shaped their paths to the top. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have Matthew Kelly with us. He leads the legal affairs, security, and IT teams at Cribl. He most recently led legal, security, IT, and global real estate at ThoughtSpot, and was previously VP and global compliance officer at ServiceNow, where he helped scale the legal function from IPO to $1 billion in annual revenue. Matthew, so great to have you here today and to get into it. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Nicole. It's great to be here.
All right. So maybe we could rewind the clock just a touch and just give us some framework in terms of early experiences, maybe even early on in life that really has helped shape the way you think about leadership and drive and solving complex problems.
Yeah, sure. So I guess let's kind of take those in maybe three parts. So complex problems. It's funny. I think back when I was a kid, I really loved taking things apart. So this could be anything from a VCR to a computer to a washing machine. And then of course, reassembling it. It may be because it was broken or some other reason, but, getting something into its component parts and really understanding, what made it tick, so to speak. And then being able to kind of reassemble it and get it to work in most cases. Really, I think kind of framed for me what ended up becoming a way to think about solving complex, legal problems, for example. You hear a lot of people, certainly across tech, talk about thinking from first principles. Well, I mean, this is kind of the crux of legal training. It's Socratic method. You get down to irreducible conclusions. That's really kind of the core of solving complex problems. And then you start solutioning and building and putting it all back together again. So kind of those things in concert, I'd say was really formative in how I approach problem solving. As far as, drive and leadership, I see those as kind of being opposite sides of the same coin. I don't know, Generation X, I think we all grew up with a certain requisite amount of paranoia as latchkey kids and a sense of, self-determination and resilience. There's always just been this sense of like, I just have to continue to keep my nose to the grindstone and continue to grind and continue to level up and excel and assess the next challenge and see if there was an opportunity to continue to add value.
I think that's a great example, especially the Gen X part, to which I can absolutely relate. We are wired from that, cut from that cloth, if you will. Was there a moment or maybe two or three that you think about having gone through that really influenced the path that you're on now? Pivotal moments, inflection points that have kind of put you on this path towards, high performance and all of the hyper growth environments that you found yourself in.
I'd love to say there was one moment or one inflection point or some crucible moment that really changed everything as far as the path that I'm currently on. However, the arc of life is circuitous, and so is my career. I very much wanted to be in tech and loved intellectual property. When I left undergrad, I went to law school at Santa Clara. I had a fantastic IP program there. Unfortunately, I graduated and there was still very much, the bottom had fallen out from the dot-com burst, and it was, jobs were few and far between in tech, certainly. I found myself working at a firm doing civil litigation, which, had its moments, but wasn't really my thing. Ended up moving in-house for a commercial broker that did, loans throughout the country. And then, of course, the bottom fell out there in 2008 when that company went bankrupt. Eventually, after a couple of years, found my way into tech, and then that was it for me. It was kind of like a homecoming, if you will. Loved everything about it, and it was everything I had anticipated it to be, and more. So yeah, not a straight path, but that's life.
No, I think sometimes they're by far the most interesting ones. And I'd be curious, how your definition or understanding of success has changed from where it might have started to the way you see success now.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and probably no right answer. I mean, the way that I think about it, again, to kind of draw upon our childhoods, and maybe you experienced the same thing, Nicole. But growing up, our parents always told us that we should just do what makes us happy, and whatever you love doing day in, day out, like, that should be your avocation, and that's what you should pursue. You could probably glean from behind me. I do love music. That's obviously not what I made a profession out of. I think the unlock for me was learning to derive joy from really understanding where your skills are. Where do you add value? So as an in-house counsel with a tech company, there are myriad opportunities to add a ton of value, and that's something from which you can derive a ton of joy. And to me, that's kind of the quintessence of success.
Yeah, almost an ikigai there, right? Where it's like, what do you love? Where can you add value and make a difference, or have an impact? And it sounds just like you found a good confluence of those things. When did you think that you wanted to really lead at the executive level? A lot of the folks that listen in our audience are aspiring C-suite or aspiring to the boardroom. And so was there a moment, a particular failure, or, was there, some sort of, again, inflection point where you were like, I want to go, I want to run at the C-suite level?
It wasn't a moment. It was an entire company. So, I spent about 6.5 years at ServiceNow, and it was transformative. I was fortunate enough to join, fairly early on as far as, in-house counsel is concerned. There was a handful of us on the team at the time. This would have been pre-IPO. And for 6.5 years, I was provided the opportunity to just really get my hands on everything. Huge testament to just the quality of leadership there. This would have been during, Frank Slootman's tenure, and Dave Schneider.
Did you work with Greg Henry when he was the CFO?
He was not the CFO at ServiceNow, but I did work with Greg quite closely, and we still keep in touch. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, he was on. I just interviewed him a couple of months ago here. He's a good friend.
And, phenomenal.
Yeah, small world.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, no. So Mike Scarpelli was the CFO at the time, and then my boss, Rob Specker. I mean, just the entire team was phenomenal, and they provided me with a lot of opportunity to again, when you talk about adding value, you spot problems or opportunities, you propose solutions, and then you just execute. I mean, it was an execution machine, and by the time, 4, 5, 6 years had transpired, it was, reflecting back, I had really touched so many different parts of the company in so many different ways, including, some security as well, which kind of set me up for success later on at ThoughtSpot and then here at Cribl, because I wear effectively 3 different hats supporting legal, security, and IT. Again, that was all due to that time at ServiceNow. It was absolutely transformational. And it was that experience that gave me, the confidence and the boots on the ground experience to sit in the chair that I'm sitting in today.
And what were some of the mindset shifts, the sort of skill upgrades, software and hardware that you had to make as a human in order to survive those high pressure environments, which you've clearly sat in, and to keep sort of rising in your career?
Yeah. To quote Frank, get comfortable being uncomfortable. With the pace of change, with how quickly everything is moving, you have to get really, really comfortable with ambiguity. There's not going to be, immediate solutions to problems. There's going to be areas of gray. It's incumbent upon you to just kind of lean into the discomfort, and treat it as a learning experience. And then also that is just crucial too, just continuing to learn. And that's everything from, of course, learning on the job to, reading, recent case law that's coming out. If you're a lawyer, staying abreast of, recent, threats if you're in security. But also networking. I can't underscore enough how important that is to build out your network of peers, as well as mentors, as mentees, across your field, to be able to have conversations and pressure test, what other people are doing within their organizations. I mean, it's just hugely, hugely valuable.
And all of that makes a ton of sense. And I wonder, was there, a certain, quality about Cribl that drew you to it, where you knew it was the right next step for you? Like, how did you land at Cribl?
I was taking my time. I wanted to make sure that the next company that I jumped into was going to be as perfect of a fit as one could reasonably ascertain from the outside looking in. I had some former ServiceNow colleagues and coworkers that were at Cribl at the time and are still here. So kind of got introduced through the network. Started doing a little bit of research. It was an incredible product. The value proposition to me was immediate. And then again, taking my time interviewing with all of the executive team, some members of the board. It was a phenomenal team. Just an all-star team that had been assembled here. The right attitudes, free of hubris, very collaborative. And I think what was important to me was, Cribl at the time was at one of these inflection points where they had done the startup thing and they were really ready to move into that phase that I knew really well. So I knew I could come in here and start adding a ton of value immediately, because I've seen that movie before, but then also I knew there was going to be a lot of new challenges. Frankly, it was a new space for me. Somewhat related to what I had done at ServiceNow, but certainly new. So I also knew that it was going to be an opportunity for me just to learn a lot more. And it's definitely exceeded my expectations. Like I said, you can only reasonably, ascertain so much about a company before you join, and then you don't really know what you're getting into until you step foot through the door. Well, like I said, it exceeded my expectations by all accounts.
That's fantastic. And if you were to really step back and think about your leadership style philosophy, how would you describe it? What is it like to work for you?
You should probably ask the people that work for me. They might have a different opinion. But so first and foremost, I always tell my team, hiring is the most important thing we do. So we have an incredible people team here. We have really great resources, including talent acquisition. But I want everybody who's a hiring manager on my team to be fixated on hiring the best candidate for the role. And the reason why that is so important, well, I mean, there's many reasons, but in the context of management, professional development, first and foremost to me, for me, I want folks who come in, who are enthusiastic, who are intelligent, who want to grow their careers. I want to understand what their career objectives are. It's typically the first question that I ask anybody that I'm interviewing, even if they're not directly on my team. It's like, I want to know, what do you want to do? What don't you want to do? So I can make an assessment as to whether or not Cribl and then the opportunity here at Cribl can support those goals. If there is any friction or disconnect between the goal and the opportunity, it's just not going to be a good fit. And then as a manager, and I learned this a lot from some prior managers of mine as well, I don't micromanage. I don't want to be in people's grills and telling them what to do and how to do it. this is, again, the importance of hiring great people. I want people who are smart, skilled, enthusiastic, ready to come in, roll up their sleeves, get to work. I will support them. I will remove roadblocks. I will find budget if need be. And then again, I want to see them develop professionally. So it creates this, in my mind, this kind of just virtuous circle or virtuous cycle, if you will. It's served me well so far.
So what are some of the non-negotiables, protocols, systems, routines that you have in place that really keep you performing at a high level?
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, avoiding distractions throughout the workday is incredibly important. As a leader and also as a legal professional, I'm not going to get any brownie points for being the quickest to respond, to shoot from the hip. My value add is critical thinking and thinking slowly and deeply about problems, using really good judgment. That is really difficult to do in a hyper-growth company that is moving at the speed of light. And you see it in the tools that you use every day, right? If you keep Slack open or on your phone, it's a firework display of alerts going off all the time, and it's really distracting. Everyone's already read all the content out there about how long it takes you to refocus again if you get distracted. So removing those distractions, knowing that, again, my value add to the company is as I described it, not just responding. And one of my phrases that I use, my team probably hates hearing this, but, not confusing motion for progress. I could spend all day long just quickly replying to Slacks all day or replying to emails, and you get that dopamine hit as if you achieve something. But did I really achieve anything that's material that's really going to advance my team or the company? Unlikely.
Yeah, the distraction piece is huge. I think it's a great call out and super smart. I wonder, I typically always ask this question of guests, and it harkens back to my great grandmother, who said, in my mind, what is very famous, which is poop makes great fertilizer. And so I would ask you, in terms of your own growth, was there a faceplant moment that you really learned from, or that was really pivotal for you when it comes to how you've then moved on to be such a high performer?
Yeah. And probably not dissimilar from everybody else that you've had on the show, I assume. You look back on a career and there are just a absolute litany of mistakes or face
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. My all-time favorite, and I've certainly regaled my team with this one before because it's just epic. So a few companies ago, we were on the receiving end of a pretty material litigation, and I was responsible at the time for managing that litigation. Again, kind of testament to the team out there. They really gave me an opportunity to do everything. But and I did have a bit of a litigation background. However, I was operating more like a lawyer and less like a customer's first business person. And what I mean by that is I got really, really deep in the weeds. So this was a patent litigation. Working with outside counsel, it was a lot of fun. It was a great learning experience, and there was a lot going on. And at one point we had to notify our customer base that there was going to be this discovery request. And without really, again, thinking through it, it was just like, oh yeah, of course. This just seemed pro forma. It's a litigation. Discovery requests are coming in. There's going to be letters that go out to our customer base notifying them of this discovery request. Yeah, by all means, go send it out. Well, sending out all at the same time. I can't remember how many customers we had at the time. And I think it was certainly over 1,000, maybe a couple thousand, but a couple thousand letters going out worldwide. You can only imagine the absolute firestorm that resulted from that.
Oh my gosh.
And we meaning my poor GC and I, but principally me, because I had to take that one on the chin and really own up to it, just completely went into crisis control mode. Created a phone tree, and I grabbed some of my other team members, and I spent probably the next month and a half of my life, every single day, just fielding phone calls inbound from customers that were absolutely just freaking out. so, um, so again, thinking like a business person, and this is what I love about Cribl's values. Their first value is customers first only. As a lawyer, you think, my client, I always put my client first. Our customers are also my customers. So that customers first business mentality, I'll never forget that again.
I think that's such a great learning, and thank you for the vulnerability in sharing that. As someone who spent my career as a senior sales executive and chief sales officer, et cetera, seeing legal as a business partner, and not, the no people, or the bureaucratic, heavy, detailed people, and getting, having an experience with the legal team that is one of, let's get to a good business decision together. It's much harder than it sounds. And it's a rarity when you have that mentality, to work with. So I think that's a wonderful awareness, and clearly why you've, obviously been so successful.
It's non-negotiable for in-house legal teams. So when I do chat with younger lawyers who are in firm thinking about going out in-house, or hiring, or talking to even law students, you often get that question. About kind of the material differences between firm and in-house. In-house, we just don't have the luxury of rendering legal advice and going away. As I say, we're in the boat together. We have to help steer. We have to help navigate, to use whatever metaphor, analogy you want. It's critical, again, kind of going back to first principles thinking. What is it that we're trying to solve for? What does the business want to achieve? And then we, as a legal team, will then help, find the best, most legal path to get to that business objective. That thinking is crucial. And then also, again, thinking through customers first, or with a customers first mentality, always doing right by the customers is absolutely crucial. And again, non-negotiable.
It's a great segue, because I wanted to pivot into speaking about Cribl, or asking you a few questions about Cribl specifically. For executives who may not live in observability every day, what problem from your perspective is Cribl really solving for?
Well, many, but first and foremost, the explosion of data, the explosion of telemetry data. We often say that, data volumes are growing at a 30% CAGR. You ask any CIO or CISO or any IT or security professional if their budgets are growing 30% every year. No, of course not. So just that volume of data, some of it is going to be really important. A lot of it may not be, but you don't know if it's important until it becomes important, right? Until you're running down a security incident, or SRE is running down, a support request. So we like to say that we're selling choice, control, and flexibility, with basically 125, give or take, sources and destinations. We help our customers get value out of all that data. We take down those walled gardens, and we provide this, single solution for, again, everything from investigations to just getting more value out of the data that you currently have. And then, recently with the re-release of new functionality in Cribl Search, we've also created a unified architecture for ingesting and investigating all of that data. So think about it in terms of bringing collection, data normalization, storage, search, dashboards, and then all of the attendant alerts all into one workflow. Hugely powerful, especially considering, again, the massive volume of or the massive growth in the volume of data.
What do you think the biggest misconception is out there around data movement and telemetry and observability at the enterprise scale?
At the enterprise scale, the biggest misconception is that you could do it homegrown, that you can just, purchase some, open source solutions and cobble something together that is going to be as performant as a solution built for this specific problem by Cribl. That, in my mind, is the biggest misconception. I mean, if you were, running a few gigabytes of data at home with your laptop, then yeah, maybe. But at scale, given the volumes of data that our customers see, it's not going to work.
And where do you think the observability market is heading in, say, like the next 3 to 5 years, especially, with AI driving all the new workloads it is, et cetera?
So we think we have a data problem now. When you have agents deployed across your enterprise working 24/7, the amount of telemetry data created by those agents is going to be enormous. I have no way to prognosticate how big, but one could only imagine. So in my mind, the future for our customers, for CISOs, for CIOs, for IT and data teams, data tiering is going to become increasingly important. So what does that mean? Being able to take your most highly valuable data, the data that you want to investigate, using that, as your kind of top tier with respect to, running investigations, et cetera, that high value data. And then your second tier would be, okay, all the other data that's created by these agents or otherwise, all your other telemetry data, being able to stick that into low cost storage, for example, like an S3 bucket or something. So data tiering is only going to become more important. And then you could slice it even myriad ways beyond that. Outside of that, I would say, AI-driven security operations and AI-driven SRE will become increasingly important because, again, just given the volume of data created by all of these agents within the enterprise. So being able to automate incident detection and response, being able to automate runtime and error resolution is going to be really powerful.
And now, wearing my Aon hat, my largest risk advisory firm in the world hat, I've got to ask you around risk, right? And sort of the risk landscape as it evolves around all of this, right? What are the risks from your perspective around data sprawl and governance or telemetry? Do you think that leaders still underestimate this? Are they aware of it? What are your thoughts there?
It's hard to tell. I do think we're going through such a transformational moment right now with respect to AI. I think there's, again, kind of a lot of forecasting as to where this is going. Whether leaders are underestimating it, I don't know if I have enough data to make an accurate assessment. I do know there is probably the requisite level of concern and paranoia, especially among our CISOs out there about agents, about agentic, about AI. Again, not only with respect to the data that's being created within an environment, but of course, just the increase in security risks as a result of AI. So again, observability, visibility, that single pane of glass to get access to all of that data and be able to inspect it is going to be really, really crucial.
If a CIO or a CISO or board member could fix just one thing in their sort of data pipeline to reduce risk, what do you think that would be?
I've got two things. So one, I would absolutely deploy Cribl Guard. So Cribl Guard with background detection. So the first iteration of Cribl Guard, effectively what it would allow enterprises to do was create some predetermined rules in order to obfuscate what they determine to be sensitive data. This could be credit card data. This could be social security numbers, could be email addresses or other personal data. Now with background detection, leveraging AI, you've got automatic detection of potentially sensitive data. So if somebody within your IT environment made some type of change that has a downstream impact, let's say you created a bunch of rules, like I want to scan for these particular data sets, but as a result of that change, they now are introducing a new set of sensitive data, personal data, et cetera. Cribl Guard with background detection will automatically detect that and then alert the admin that, hey, we found some sensitive data. You want to create a rule to obfuscate that, et cetera. That is risk reduction 101. The other thing that I think is going to become crucial moving forward, so again, kind of a bit more future looking, when we talk about agents within an environment, agent-based identity and RBAC is going to be super important. And then again, all of the logging and other telemetry data created by those agents, you'll know which agent it was, what it was accessing, whether or not it had the appropriate privileges, et cetera. So again, for purposes of investigation, that's going to be the next phase of this.
So yeah, shifting now to sort of some personal questions, if we might, to getting to know you a little bit more. In terms of like outside of work, are there certain wellness practices or habits or even personal pursuits that you think that you use to elevate your performance as it relates to work? Are there certain personal best practices that you have in place, perhaps?
Love any kind of outdoor activity, walking, trail running, just running in general. I think, certainly, keeping up with fitness helps with clarity of mind. It sounds somewhat trite, but it absolutely makes a difference as far as I'm concerned in my day-to-day routine. I, of course, love music. So there's probably not a day that goes by where I'm not picking up my guitar or playing drums. And frankly, sometimes throughout the day, if I am ruminating on a particularly challenging problem for work, I often find that just, exercising the right side of the brain and maybe taking a break and doing something creative often results in a creative solution to that complex problem, revealing itself. So, again, at the risk of sounding somewhat redundant or derivative, I just kind of being able to find that balance. At this level, I think about Cribl all the time. I'm thinking about my role. I'm thinking about my team. I'm thinking about different problems, that we need to solve or what we could be doing better. I mean, if I was up 24 hours a day, it would be a 24-hour a day undertaking. So it's important to then create some kind of guardrails for yourself, if you will, or some space to do something outside of that. And it makes you all the more, productive and efficient when you're, back in the saddle.
Yeah, I think it's a great call out. I think, when we think about, what do they call it? Regulatory authority, right? Making sure that we're balancing the sort of the right brain, left brain, the whole vagus nerve, parasympathetic nervous system, and coming into balance. And I think that brings out the best in all of us. And I certainly think that, whether it's music or whatever that creative piece is, balancing out what you've described as that other side, which is very analytical and very detail oriented and incredibly precise. I think it sounds like a great balance, and it makes a ton of sense. I wonder when you think about. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add, Nicole. It would come as no surprise to you then how many lawyers I know who are in bands or who play music. They may not be as necessarily as in your face with it by having backgrounds like mine, but it's immensely gratifying. And again, the type of thing that, at least in my own experience, absolutely leads to higher productivity.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. I think it's wonderful. It's a wonderful point to make. And when you think, and obviously, you've got a lot of miles left on your working corporate citizen tires, but when you do still let yourself think about legacy and sort of, the impact that you'd like to look back and think that you had, what as a leader comes to mind?
Yeah, really the most gratifying thing for me, among a surfeit of really gratifying, professional things, is, the development of other leaders on my team, and not only here at Cribl, but in past roles as well. To see folks move on and move up and move out, that is incredibly gratifying. So, and this takes me back to our conversation around, management and leadership and professional development. Again, I do take that really seriously. So to see folks flourish and then again, move on and achieve that next milestone in their own careers is incredibly gratifying. So, to continue to support that, to continue to see people on my team flourish and get to that next stage of their career is immensely gratifying.
I couldn't agree more. And if you were to, kind of leave the audience with listeners, who are mostly, either C-suite board members or certainly aspiring to be, with one message about the future of data or leadership, or resilience. Do you have a few thoughts there?
Apropos of our conversation about the explosion of data and this kind of crucible moment that we're living in, the rules are being rewritten as far as AI is concerned, and its impact, writ large across the globe, but certainly for enterprises. Those companies that are going to be the most resilient, especially with respect to data, our CIOs, our CISOs, are going to be the companies that have the most choice, control, and flexibility. So again, to have Cribl, as that infrastructure transport layer that gives you that choice, control, and flexibility in a world that's constantly changing in a rapidly evolving environment, that is going to be one of your keys to success.
Excellent. No, well said. And was there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you? Or any last few thoughts you want to share?
We covered a lot of ground. I mean, this was really fun. I really appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Appreciate you being here, and absolutely all of the great insights and perspective. Appreciate it very much. Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. Really appreciate it.